Welcome to the lesson, How Do Living Things Change? In this lesson, you're going to plant, observe, and measure the growth of bean seeds. These children are planting bean seeds in a vegetable garden. They'll watch what happens to these seeds over 2 months. How do you think the bean seeds will change after they're planted? Type your answer in the box, then click OK. In this lesson, you'll find out exactly how seeds like these change after they're planted. You probably know that bean seeds are produced by bean plants, right? But what are the parts of a bean seed and what do they do? Look at this picture. It's a bean seed that's been cut in half. Click the different parts to learn more. Most of the seed is used as food for the young plant when the seed is in the ground. After the young plant grows out of the ground, it will produce its own food. Inside the seed, there's a young plant. It's called an embryo. It includes tiny roots and leaves. The young plant grows into an adult plant. Each seed is covered by a seed coat. The seed coat protects the seed. To investigate exactly how a seed will change once it's planted, you'll perform an experiment. You'll watch how a bean seed is planted. Then, you'll see what happens to it. At different times, you'll measure the plant's height. And you'll graph the plant's growth. Click the first image to find out more. In the investigation, you'll observe what happens to the seed from the time it starts growing inside the ground. After the bean plant pushes up through the ground, you'll measure its height with a ruler and record this height using a counter. You'll conduct your experiment for 50 days. You'll see how many days have passed with the help of a daily calendar. A graph is a way to record data so we can see patterns. You'll use a graph called a bar graph because the bars are a good way to model the plant's height. The horizontal line of the graph represents days. The vertical line represents height. To graph the plant's growth, you'll measure and record the plant's height for a particular day. Each measurement looks like a bar. By looking at the pattern of these bars, you'll see how the plant's growth changes over time. Here's what you'll use in this experiment. A model of a growing bean seed. A bean seed. You'll plant this bean seed in the soil. A calendar. You'll see how many days have passed since the bean seed was planted. A camera. During the experiment, you'll take photos of the growing plant with this camera. A ruler. You'll measure the height of the bean plant with this ruler. A counter. You'll click the counter to record the bean plant's height for each photo. A data table. Your photos will appear in the data table. Now, see if you can make a prediction. How do you think the bean plant will grow during the experiment? Choose the graph that shows what you think will happen. Click your answer, then click OK. Click the Next button to see if your prediction is correct. How will you carry out your investigation after you plant the seed? Drag the steps in order. Good work! You've made a good plan. Now you're ready to begin. Let's get started. Drag the bean seed into the soil. Click the camera to take a picture of the plant. Notice the picture appears in the table. The seed is in the ground. The plant's height in the counter is 0. Click the Run button to start the model. Click the camera to take a picture. Keep the counter at 0 if the plant did not grow above the ground. Click the Run button to continue until day 20. Click the camera. Drag the ruler to the plant. Measure the plant's height above the ground. Click the counter to record the height in centimeters. Click the Run button to continue until day 30. Click the camera. Measure the plant's height. Record this height in the counter. Continue this same process for day 40 and day 50. Look at the graph. It is based on data from the experiment. What does each bar represent? What does the graph show? Type your answer in the box and then click OK. Each bar represents how high the plant was on a given day. The graph shows the changes in the plant's growth from the planting of the seed to 50 days afterward. Think about your experiments and the graph of your results. Which of these statements do you think is true? Click your answer and then click OK. That's right. The plant started to grow out of the ground several days after germination. Then it continued to grow, but stopped growing after it reached a certain height. You've noticed that a plant produces a seed. And if this seed germinates, it produces a different plant that has seeds, and the process continues. This is called a life cycle. Drag the pictures to show these stages in a bean plant's life cycle. That's it. You put the different stages of a bean plant's life cycle in the correct order. You've learned a lot about how bean seeds change. Before we finish, let's take a quick look at the main points you covered. A bean seed has 3 parts: an embryo, food, and a seed coat. It takes several days for a seed to germinate inside the ground. Then, it takes several more days until a young plant grows through the soil. You can graph how a plant's height changes over time. In the experiment, the bean plant reached a certain height and remained at this height. Plants produce seeds, and seeds produce new plants. This process is an example of a life cycle. Now that you've finished the lesson, click the Lab Report button to save or print it.